we hired our first team of 2 people in Latin America through BYU. So they were graduates of the BYU Pathways program. They spoke fluent English. They had non-existent accents. And previous to this, and something that you said, Sean, when we were getting on here, is a lot of us have preconceived ideas of what outsourcing is. And if I were to surmise what mine was, is it's cheaper, but in doing so, you get lower quality.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found through the BYU Pathways program and the talent we found in Latin America is we've gotten harder working people at a lower cost, but that have stayed around and driven actual happier customers for us. We have not had a decrease of quality. And I'm not saying blatantly that's the story about outsourcing, but we believe we've found a golden nugget of talent, of hardworking individuals who want a better career.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast. Sean and Lacey with you, just as we are each and every week. And just as we are each and every week, we're joined by a fascinating individual who is going to help us to overcome maybe some preconceived notions or thoughts about building a team, and especially about building a virtual team. You know, we live in this age right now where hiring is very challenging, right? Trying to find
Good
the right
talent.
people, get the
Mhm.
right people, get them trained. Then as soon as you have them trained, somebody comes along and pays them more and they go and they work for someone else, and you're in this constant search, and then you're kind of desperate. So now you don't hire the right people, you just hire the person that's
First
available.
person.
And man, it just creates all kinds of dilemmas. And today's guest has a solution that he has proven. So also very important, not that like he was brainstorming on his couch and he was like, what if we hired people virtually? No. He's proven this concept. And now he's expanding the concept to help and reach even more people, which hopefully will include you. At the end of this podcast, you'll be like, all right, I got to get my act together. I want to get with today's guest. Today's guest is Cory Pinegar. Let's bring in Cory. Dude, what's going on? Great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
So we begin every podcast with the same question. We're going to start that way with you today. Um, and I alluded to that a little bit, but we always like to ask our guests their creation story, because anytime that we bring a guest on the show, obviously they're doing big things, but it's easy for one to think like, well, you were just sitting on your couch and you're like, all right,
Let's just do it.
let's hire some people in Costa Rica, and then bang, and then you're successful. Or your father, your mother, they had this great, virtual team, and they just taught you everything you know, and then bang, now here you are. Tell us a little bit about the story, the obstacles, the road bumps, and the journey that brings you to where you are today.
Yeah. So, first of all, and as I said again, pleasure to be here. I actually want to go to the creation of the creation story. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs and people who want to have impact listening today. And I think I have a really interesting, I wouldn't call it a creation, I'd call it falling into a sinkhole or stumbling upon an opportunity. But when I was going to Brigham Young University years ago, this is 2016, I was a student and I needed a part-time job. And my aunt was the executive assistant for the CEO of a company called Weave. And she called me up one day and she said, hey, we have this closet that needs to be cleaned out as soon as possible. We'll pay you $500 to get it done. And I was like, hell yeah, this is great. I can work when I want. I can clean out a closet. I didn't understand how big of a closet I was committing to clean out. But that really got my start at a company called Weave. And Weave late last year went public on the New York Stock Exchange for a few $1 billion. And While I was there, it wasn't the prettiest or perfect of times, and they were actually cutting about 40% of their headcount. And so in December of 2016, Jared and Brandon Rodman, who were the co founders, approached me and my partner, Casey Henson, and said, "Hey, we've got this small little division called Recare Solutions, and you provide overdue patient scheduling to dental practices. Would you be interested in buying it?" And I went to my dad. It was doing maybe in a good day, $250,000 of revenue. And they said that we could buy it for $1 total, no strings attached. And I took it to my dad, who I highly respect in business and life. And he told me it was the dumbest idea he's ever heard of. And so I decided to do it. We bought the company. It would have been almost 7 years ago now, and bought it for $1. Today, have hundreds of employees, service thousands of dental practices, and we built a scheduling team for dental practices. And when COVID happened and inflation happened in the United States, everyone's wages went through the roof.
Yeah.
We couldn't retain the right team members. I would pull through In and Out or McDonald's and see that they're paying $18.50 as a base wage. And there's only so much cost that we could pass along to our customers.
Right.
And so we hired our first team of 2 people in Latin America through BYU. So they were graduates of the BYU Pathways program. They spoke fluent English. They had non existent accents. And previous to this, and something that you said, Sean, when we were getting on here, is a lot of us have preconceived ideas of what outsourcing is. And if I were to surmise what mine was, is it's cheaper, but in doing so, you get lower quality.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found through the BYU Pathways program and the talent we found in Latin America is we've gotten harder working people at a lower cost, but that have stayed around and driven actual happier customers for us. We have not had a decrease of quality. And I'm not saying blatantly that's the story about outsourcing, but we believe we've found a golden nugget of talent, of hardworking individuals who want a better career. And so connecting them with American companies that can pay better is our goal. And so we at Team really serve the genesis for this. Is it worked so well for hundreds of roles within our call center. Why not go offer this to other businesses? And that's really the creation story in a very long and roundabout way that led to the forming of Team.
Well, that's super awesome for
That's
$1.
a really pretty sinkhole. Yeah. It's like, I want to go back, Cory, though, to the first part where you were working with dental offices, because that clearly was a proof of concept that helped you build the next iteration and creation of the other business. So what was your team doing for dental offices? How did they service them? And how did they generate revenue? What was the solution that you guys were providing for those service providers?
So we have 3 main service lines. Number one is an answering service. And the bulk majority of that is done during the day. So if a practice cannot pick up a call, in dentistry, about 32% of all phone calls go unanswered. So after about 20 to 25 seconds, it rolls over to our team. We charge per call. Then we also, our second service line is do overdue patient recare calls. So, hey, Dr. Smith noticed that you're overdue for your upcoming appointment and we don't have you scheduled. Can we get you back on the schedule? Here's some available times. And third is we did the insurance verification for upcoming appointments insurance. All 3 of those, what we really went after is what is efficiency or tasks and practices that often fall on the back burner that drive better patient experience, drive more revenue, and more profit. And if we could do those through simple, maybe not so pretty services that aren't everyone's favorite to do, can we grow a company that provides impact across the board?
So works here, and now you are expanding your offerings. So tell me about that jump. First, let's talk about it from an entrepreneurial perspective. You have a good thing going inside of one vertical. Why not just stay there? Why jump now all of a sudden to everything else that you're doing? And then let's talk about the everything else that you're doing. What are you expanding into?
So today at Reach, we still are wholly dental focused. I think through being an entrepreneur, the original genesis for Team was there's so many other companies like ours that need access to this.
Mm.
And if you 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago were to go to me and say, hey, go hire a team in Argentina, I'd say, I don't know how to find them. I don't know how to legally pay them where it's sustainable. We're not going to Venmo or Cash App people going forward. And so the idea was to create a bridge that connected hardworking individuals with hungry businesses. And it started just as a haphazard growth where it really was a side business. And over time, over the last year alone, we've staffed 400 roles. And the goal is just to continue to do that going forward, where we can make a big impact for the hardworking team members we help staff and help businesses within the US do it more cost effectively with better reliability of their team members as well.
So I am just playing the role of the entrepreneur here because like Sean was saying, like you were saying, there's a lot of preconceived ideas around what this looks like, or even based on past experiences with other companies, right? So I know a lot of people, they're like, well, virtual assistant and virtual teams, how do I know? Because you're saying they're higher quality, but how do I know that when I'm paying somebody that they are delivering quality work and they're working the hours that they say they are, right?
Control
It's the
freaks.
control freak. Like a lot of people worry about that. Like, how do I actually know that this is going to end up as a good employee? And so, how would you answer that for somebody that thinks that?
Yeah, first of all, that's very real. And I would actually
Yes.
not say that's the minority, that's the majority of people who feel uncertain about the idea. Taking the reins off their business, though that's the concept of how you scale, it's also very scary to do it. It's easy in practice, it's easy to coach other people on it. And then you do it within your business and it's much different. The way I look at it is there's early adopters. There are people who say, I've struggled to hire within my business for the last 6 months. I've got to try something else. For me, when we get those opportunities, we need to knock it out of the park where their authentic review is this was way better than I ever could have imagined. When they say that and begin to spread that positivity, the misconception, or I would even say reality of a lot of solutions begins to change. And that adoption scale begins to move back to others who would be more tentative when they hear from Sean and Lacey and many other people within the space who are actually using it day to day, that it's better and it works. And so there's people right here and right now who are already willing to do it. But for me as an entrepreneur, we need to hit a home run or a double every single one of those opportunities we get. And the success stories, there's no sexy marketing that's going to do it for us here. It's authentic reviews where people say, oh, okay, maybe it's my turn to give this a try.
Mm. And so the next thing I know that people ask me all the time, because a lot of our clients are looking for a virtual team and actually would prefer to have somebody that's reliable, does good work, that they have access to. But I've had a lot of people say, well, I've worked with other companies and they have high turnover. So as soon as I get a virtual assistant that I love, all of a
And
sudden,
train.
and I train them on all my systems. Oh my God, next thing I know is they're gone. So I know that that's a big concern. So tell us a little bit about how your company may be different with that.
Yeah. So I think that's a very real reality. And if you're looking for the lowest cost option, first of all, we're not it because we believe in paying our team members very well for where they live. Our base salary in Brazil puts them in the top 25% of earners countrywide.
Nice.
And to have good reliability of your team members, if you pay minimum wage, you're going to have high turnover because they can go find or replicate that job quite easily.
Hmm.
But if we're paying significantly higher, our wage just to further or go even deeper puts them in the same range of doctors within some of the local countries. And because of that, can you get someone very educated, very driven, and pay them well enough where there's not 10 or 15 other opportunities that they could then go jump to.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, like though money is not the end all be all, it still makes the world go round. And what differentiates us is making sure that people we're hiring are actually equipped from a emotional standpoint or soft skills standpoint to be a good virtual employee. If someone was an Energizer bunny who loved the energy of a physical office every day, and we look at assessments that actually help us define that, we don't want to hire them, not because they're a bad hire, but because they, in 6 months of being a virtual team member, would be miserable and look for another opportunity. Second, we need to compensate them in a class where they're reliable and they're really dedicated because they're being treated at a different level that they haven't experienced before.
That's great.
So the website is Hire Team, Teem, Team, Teem, hireteam.com. That's where you can find out about this. I want to talk, Cory, then about the transition, or not necessarily the transition, but the difference. Inside the dental space, you had three main functions. With Hire Team, that's not for dentists, it's for entrepreneurs. What are some of the most popular things that you are being hired to accomplish for entrepreneurs?
I'd say 1 and 2, and they're quite even together, is admin assistants. So that is a very wide ranging amount of daily tasks. And people who work in scheduling or customer service functionalities for different practices. So whether it's scheduling for a chiropractic office or doing outbound calls to follow up on treatment plans that have fallen off their correct cadence, those are 1 and 2. The nice thing about what we do is we can go find a part-time finance or accounting person or a part-time marketer. But the vast majority, I'd say 70% of what we do, really buckets into the customer service and then admin assistant world. And though people often group those together, I look at them differently because someone who loves the details and loves being behind the scenes and keeping it clean is often not the best scheduler, and vice versa. And so those often get grouped together, but I look at them different because there's different soft skills and passions that lead to success in those roles.
Well,
Oh,
I
your
want to
question.
talk about the process, though.
Yep, that's what I was gonna ask.
So, what I find the next thing on a deeper level. So, let's say that we have overcome some misconceptions, and people are like,
Yeah, I
"Well,
want to give this a
I'm gonna
shot.
give this a shot." The next thing is like, "Yeah, but then I'm not just gonna call Cory," and then he's like, "Okay, so meet, Robert. This is your assistant. Talk
Because
to
how
us
do I know that's a
about."
good fit?
Yeah, talk to us about how that somebody that engages you, walk us through the process, what it looks like. How do I get matched up with the person? Do I train them? Do you train them? Walk us through so that somebody would feel confident and secure in moving forward with you.
So, number one, before we move forward, we'd hold a discovery call. And I'd say every once in a while, we get a request where we're like, that is not our bread and butter. And we're not the jack of all trades here. And so we need to make sure that the role an individual is looking for is something that we are capable of filling, not at just a decent level, but at a high level. Number two is we'd then have a kickoff call and we'd bring a member of our customer success team who would be their main point of contact going forward. And then also some members of our recruiting team. And this is when we learn what hours are you looking to have them fill, what hard skills are important to you, and then what soft skills are important to you, bright and bubbly or very attentive to detail, whether you're passionate about them having a graphic design or an Excel background. We want to know and get to a very granular level of what does your Cinderella look like here. Then our recruiting team takes about 1 to 1.5 weeks to go out there and source through our systems and applicants to find the right fit. Generally, in a typical role, they look in about 3 to 500 roles or 3 to 500 resumes. They interview what I'd say is about 30 of them, the top 10%. And then they bring the best 3 to 5 candidates that fit the hours, fit the soft skills, fit the hard skills to the hiring company. And then the company does the final interviews and back-to-back interviews. And they say, oh, Robert's the right person or Cory's the right person for us to bring on. And every once in a while, and this is okay, you could do those 3 interviews and you could say, these are good, but not great. We also can go back to the drawing board after that first session, make sure we understand what we're looking for more concretely and bring interviews until we find that Cinderella fit for you. We don't move forward until the group we're hiring for has says, this is the person we want to bring on. So it's not a, here's your person, go out there and get it done. The group we work for at the end of the day makes that final decision. We just want to sift the wheat from the tares for them so that it's a really easy process and a quick process to move forward.
Wow.
You know what? I love that you just talked about that in detail, because I think that is such a unique component to a virtual assistant hiring program. Like, I've worked with a lot of virtual assistants and I've used a lot of different companies, and it always felt like, oh, they hear me, they ask what I'm looking for, and then they kind of act like matchmakers, and they're like, here's the perfect fit for you. And then I just start working with that one individual. I love that I am more involved in the process, that I actually get to interview multiple people to choose the right one for me, because it's not just about your skill set. It is those soft skills and my ability to lead and communicate with that person,
And
that
chemistry.
and chemistry, that actually makes it a successful
You need to enjoy
relationship.
it.
Did
You
you
need to
enjoy
enjoy
it?
who you work with.
Yeah. And I mean, that's so unique. So I think that that's a super beneficial part of the process. I saw something else though that you guys do, and it's a test project. So tell us about that, because I think that's also very unique.
So oftentimes, if you're a graphic designer or you need intricate Excel skills, it's one thing to put on your resume proficient in Excel. I know I did that in high school.
Yeah.
It's different to actually live and breathe it. And so oftentimes when there is certain technical things, we on our side want to assess it. And then some people will also have them take home an assignment. Oftentimes we'll hire developers and they will get some type of test where this is what I need you to develop and return it in the next 48 hours. And then the proof in the pudding is seen. So with more technical items, if you're hiring for a scheduler, we know in a physical conversation how this person is going to handle themselves with prospective customers or patients. But when you get into the more nitty gritty of technical roles, making sure you're confident in who you're bringing on is a very important part. We can administer set ones that we already have, but then we also have certain technical assessments that our clients will have our team members run through.
Mm.
Once again, the website is Hire Team, Teem, hireteam.com. I want you to check it out because this is a very compelling opportunity for all of our listeners. On the backside of this, though, I want to talk about not so much your company, but your experience.
Mm.
A lot of people then get into this. They get go through your process, even hire on a virtual team member, and then I see this a lot. They're like, okay, so you're virtual, out of sight, out of mind, go do your thing. It's different because you don't give the same sort of nurturing to somebody who is virtual as somebody who's sitting right next to you. Any tips, because you've seen literally thousands of these come through your desk or by through your company. um, Give us some pro tips for people when hiring a virtual team member. What should we do to ensure success with our virtual team?
Number one, and this is more of a hiring tip, is you need to make sure that this person enjoys a virtual environment. If this is oftentimes salespeople enjoy that in-office camaraderie, that water cooler talk, and that thrives them in it. So you need to make sure you're bringing on the right person. But the second thing, and just to keep it short, because I think it's important that way, is to be intentional. And that means being intentional about how you train. It just doesn't happen through osmosis where you're in the same office and they can hear how you do a demo. They can hear how your customer service works. Being intentional about how you train them, and then being intentional about driving a virtual or a remote culture. Because their water cooler talk doesn't exist, investing in them, knowing your core values, spending time in the weekly roundups where the team gets together, where they can join via Google Meet or Zoom or whatever is used, and integrating them into your team. If you think that they can go off into another corner and thrive, yes, they can do their job, but for them to excel, you want them bought in on your mission and vision. And so integrating them intentionally into your physical team is the biggest key to making it a long-term success.
And I have one more question. Sorry. I spent many, many years working in Costa Rica. And so I understand that there are, one, cultural differences, but two, there are some legal differences. In Costa Rica, they receive something called aguinaldo, which means in the month of December, they receive a double monthly payment, right? So they get an extra month's payment in December. I never understood that. I was like, why not just take that payment,
And disperse it amongst the
out, just make
other
them all
months. Yeah.
equal? Because it's kind of hard for small business owners too. You have to pay everybody double
Right.
in that last month. So you have to really plan on that. And some businesses, maybe if you're in the service world, that December is slower.
Yeah.
It's not retail.
You
Retail
have to
December
plan
is
for
big.
it. Yeah.
If I'm hiring somebody and they are working in Costa Rica, how do I know the cultural idiosyncrasies? And two, what about the legal idiosyncrasies? Am I covered, or are you going to
You
say
guys do
surprise?
that,
You
or
owe
yeah,
them
what?
extra in December? How does that work?
So we at Team are actually the official employer of record. Though from a day-to-day perspective, they work fully and they're not spread among multiple businesses. We provide one person for each
Wow.
project that they're working on that's selected. So it's not like someone's out or maybe it's a different person. You've got that full team member, but whether it's in the Philippines, so the same exemption lives within the Philippines, which is called the 13th month bonus. Our job as the employer of record is to manage that wholeheartedly. So you, a business, pays us as a vendor, whether it is Argentinian employment tax, healthcare in in a different country. We're not expecting people to have the knowledge. We have employed thousands of people. We can also, at that scale, afford the legal team and legal costs around doing it sustainably. So we are the official employer of record. We get paid for a full-time virtual assistant, $1,600 a month. For a part-time virtual assistant, $800 a month. That doesn't change. You pay us as a vendor. We manage all of the details and logistics going forward.
Wow, that's quite a deal.
That is quite a deal. I was just like, wow.
Hireteam.com. I was also in looking at the website. There's so many other things, right?
Yes.
Corey gave us the top things. So
Gotta
many
go
other
check it out.
things
Yeah.
that his team of his virtual team can provide for you. And I know that, in addition to service providers listen to the podcast, but in addition to, calls, receiving calls, follow-up calls, design and admin type things. I think
Project
that's really
managers,
interesting.
development,
Then
all
then
sorts of things in
developers,
there.
some people have these side projects and apps and things that they have in mind. You can't they're not an app team, but you have to lead them. But this is going to be of interest to a lot of people. Corey, anything that we failed to discuss that you think is absolutely critical that people know before they jump into building the virtual team?
There's nothing critical. I think the biggest thing that I've learned that's been eye-opening or humbling to me is how eager people are around the globe. I've realized how fortunate we are in the United States to be able to control our outcomes a little more. But there's people who are born in very desolate and remote towns where they can be hungry and want to be successful, but they're prohibited by their surroundings or their country or the economy that they live in. And these are not insignificant or light opportunities that they're joining. So, just as much as they are transforming and helping the businesses that are employing them, that are, helping hire them, also are making a very real and not insignificant difference in the lives of the people they employ. My favorite message that I've ever gotten in my 7 years of being involved was a photo from a new hire that we had about 90 days before, saying, "Hey, I just moved me, my wife, and my son to our very first apartment. We've been living in multifamily shared housing ever since I was born. I've never had my own place."
Wow.
And business is business at the end of the day, but knowing that you also on your side are truly transforming people's lives who are hungry. They just have never got the opportunity. And so for me at Team, like we're a couple hundred team members right now. Our goal over the next 10 years is to do 10,000 roles, not because that's a great, grandiose number, but because those are real lives below the surface in the United States and overseas that can be changed. And at the end of the day, I think that's the greatest meaning of business, is transforming lives and making a difference for people who want to make it happen.
Love it.
I love that mission. I love to be a part of helping you to get to the 10,000
10,000.
lives. I absolutely love that. I have a feeling you're going to be seeing a lot more of Cory, because I mean, virtual assistants, dime a dozen. Done like this and done with this type of mission is really special. Thank you, Cory, so much for jumping on the podcast and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I hope that people will jump on hireteam.com. That's where you can begin to dip your toe into that virtual world. And I know that once you get going in there, you're going to see not only the cost effectiveness, because I love that business is business, but then the impact that you're able to make in someone's life. And then it sort of becomes addictive, because you're like, wow, I'm making a massive impact in these people's lives. And hopefully you as a business owner will be getting a picture from somebody, and they'll be sharing with you how you've touched their lives. And it will be all worth it. Thank you so much, Cory. We super appreciate you being on the None of Your Business podcast.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, everybody. Great podcast today. I hope that you learned something new, and I hope that we help you to overcome some of your fears and trepidations about jumping into that virtual world. After all, we're here to help you to reach even more people and make an even bigger impact, and to create the lifestyle that you deserve. But
Also
we
them.
learned today also them. So hopefully you'll check them out, and we'll make an even bigger impact together. I don't know how we top this episode, but we're certainly going to give it a shot next week. We'll be back again, and we'll give it a go. Be sure to tune in next week to a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast.